I'm what?
Your on air thing is we're live and whatever. Your on
Oh,
air
you're
thing
right. Oh my
is all.
God, my on air thing is like, folks. I've let it. This is, you know what? This is so funny, that on air thing. I went to visit my parents in San Diego for Thanksgiving. My parents and my sister live out there, and my birthday is November 15th. So it's like,
No
right
way.
before.
Mine's the 16th.
Are you shitting me?
I'm
Wow,
not shitting
weird.
you. Yeah, there we go.
Weird. So check this out. My brother's birthday is the 14th of November, and we're not twins or anything. It's just a weird coincidence. Like, and I don't know if you've seen, there's this TikTok page called ICM Triplets. They're these three girls, and they do these like really creative, really clever dances. And that's the only part of like Dance Talk that I'm on, because they are amazing. Like the stuff they come up with, and people are copying their trends, but they're triplets. But they're fraternal triplets. So, they look like just regular sisters. And I'm like, man, when I see like, fraternal twins or fraternal, she was like, okay, then what was the point of all this? Like, why? Yeah, it seems like, why? You mean that's not cool at all to me. I think that me and my brother being born one day apart and not being like twins or something is a lot cooler of a story than, oh yeah, we're triplets, but we just look like regular siblings. And so I don't know. But so anyway, yeah, so my birthday was right before Thanksgiving, and visited my folks, and my mom got me a present. She got me this watch, and then she got me that. And I opened it. She goes, "Oh, I think you'll like this." And I looked at it, and I couldn't tell what it was. I was looking at it. It had like the silver bar on there and a cord, and it said on air. I thought it was a machine. I thought it was like something for a laptop. I was trying to figure out what it's like. So what does it do? And my mom said, "No, it's like an on-air sign. You could put it up when you do your stuff." I was like, "Oh, that's so great!" But yeah, so thanks, Mom. I let you down this episode. I'm not watching this, but welcome to the Left Wing, folks. How you doing?
Welcome. I saw Heather already commented. She's excited for this live. TJ, Heather's excited for the live. Well, it's titled Trump 2028. Obviously, you're about to announce that you're leaving the left and you're switching your vote.
Yes. This is how I left the left. This is going to be my introduction into this right here. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the Trump 2028 thing, because I don't know if you guys had seen this article that came out. Let me see if I can get this bad boy going here.
We just learned how to screen share on this.
We just learned, yeah. I feel like a boomer, just like taking his first steps here. Okay, so
it's funny. Wait, before I have to say this before you get to that, TJ. I did like there's this, someone interviewed me like to talk about the content creation and like what it's like and everything, and they were asking me all these questions about the platforms. Like, honestly, if you ask an average 14-year-old girl, they'll know more about the platforms than I do. I just know how to write the content and make it. Anything else, I have no clue.
Absolutely. I created a Twitch channel, and like last week, I think, like maybe last Monday or something. And so I was like, oh, I can stream these on Twitch too. And so I clicked to stream it on Twitch, but I just realized it didn't say schedule. I was like, oh man, do I have to do more? Is there something else I have to do? Because I never check it or anything. So yeah, we're just figuring this shit out as we go along, folks. But I wanted to talk about this Trump 2028 thing. Say what?
Same as Trump, just figuring out how to be president as he goes along.
You know what? I got to tell you, Donald Trump has inspired me in a lot of ways, because if a fucking moron like Donald Trump can become president of the United States, the sky's the limit for the rest of us. I mean, really, I find it as an aspirational tale in a lot of ways. Okay, so I saw this article and I perused through it. I don't know what John thinks about this concept in general, but I wanted to go over it and spare a few thoughts. So us from the American Conservatives says Trump 2028. The 22nd Amendment is an arbitrary restraint on the presidents who serve non-consecutive terms and democracy itself. Lost in the left's endless babbling about Trump's alleged threat to democracy is a very simple but inconvenient truth. Wasn't that a movie? Wasn't that Al Gore's movie.
Truth. Yeah, it's Al Gore's movie.
Yeah, guys, plagiarizing already. Trump's reemergence as the Republican presidential nominee in 2024 is a triumph of democracy. Not only did Trump secure the nomination following his defeat in 2020, a rather incredible feat in it was the D writing just doesn't stop here. Like they just cannot stop with this guy. But did so in spite of every obstacle the mainstream media, the Republican establishment, and the lawfare apparatus has put in his way. I do want to say, have you heard the word lawfare before this?
No, that's the first time I've ever, and I understand what it means immediately. So good job to whoever coined it, I guess. But yeah,
I never heard it until the whole of Trump, because Trump and his team, they say it all the time. They say, "Oh, practicing lawfare." I've never heard. I don't know if it was an actual word or just something that they just came up with.
Well, I don't know what they mean it by, because it's my first time hearing it. But if they mean it by, hey, like there's a lot of institutions in this country that like are just kind of bloated legally to like
what they mean
pockets,
is
like that makes sense to me.
They mean that the legal system is being weaponized unfairly to punish Donald Trump. Like all these court cases are just.
They were so close. They were so close to making a salient point that would actually align with conservative values, but that is not one of them. It neither is a salient point, nor does it align with conservative values.
Yeah. It's so funny that they talk about the two-tiered system of justice and that Trump, for some reason, is on the bottom. And I heard some Trump reporter at a rally talking about, again, something Trump has said that, the black community, they're really relating with Trump, because of how unfair is being treated. Okay, so are black people being treated unfairly or not? Because last time I checked, conservatives said that every time black people are shot or in prison, because we have it coming. Like that's what I heard from conservatives my entire life. But now you're trying to use this against to suck up Trump. It's just obnoxious. Oh, let's see. All right. The primary voters and caucus goers who chose Trump did so in spite of January 6th, the prosecution of the former president, or even the popularity in some MAGA quarters of Ron DeSantis. They chose him because they damn well felt like it. And this goes on as like that the voters actually want Trump, and they talk about what the amendment is, which states no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. No person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of president more than once. Basically, what it means is that you can only be elected to the presidency twice. That's the maximum amount of times, and serve 8 years. You can serve more than 8 years. Say I'm the president and John's the vice president, and I die halfway through my term. John finishes the last 2 years, and then he can be elected twice. He can serve 10 years as president, but 10 years is the most that you can serve. So this sounds reasonable enough, especially in light of FDR's hold on the office. So for those of you who don't know, FDR was elected to the presidency 4 times because this law didn't exist until 1951. So he served 12 years and he died early in his 4th term. And they talk about other people who have tried, not that often, but this part I want to get at here. In modern times, it is virtually inconceivable that any of the ousted one-term presidents would have seriously thought of running anew against the same opponent who had bested them 4 years earlier. This is not a reflection of weakness in their character, but the reality of American public life. Voters are fickle, and by the end of the first term of any presidency, they have long forgotten the loser from 4 years earlier. And this is plainly unfair. There has long been support for axing the Second Amendment due to the artificial limits it placed on voter choice. So I want to know what you feel about this, John. Like, do you like the idea of the 22nd Amendment that presidents can only serve 2 terms, or is it an idea that's misplaced and its time has passed?
Yeah, this is actually a thing that I changed my stance on, because if you would have asked 2015 John Cooper, what do you think about it, I would have been like, no, that seems kind of like a dumb arbitrary limit. I probably would have agreed with the broad strokes of this article, but it just seems like there's no real benefit to not having it. Like, if we can't, here's the thing, it just cost benefit analysis. The worst thing that can happen with it is a good president doesn't get selected again. But if you're a good president, you should be able to set up a succession plan to a equally capable president. if you're that good, you know, like if you're FDR, FDR was pretty darn good. But like if you're that loved and the country wants you, you should be able to appoint your successor, and the country will probably follow suit and let the reins pass to a new generation, and they'll be marginally worse at worst. You would assume. But if you don't have this safeguard in place, you run the risk of a dictatorship, and that's very, very bad. It's like allowing, like, to get rid of it would be a little tiny bit of extra freedom in a sense that wouldn't ever actually come to fruition, at risk of a dictatorship. It just doesn't make sense to get rid of it to me anymore. Like, the cost benefit doesn't work. And as much as I might philosophically say, yeah, whatever, like, let the voters decide, like, what's the point? What do we have to gain? You know what I mean?
So yeah, I don't know if I agree. Most people think that, like, this law was always in place because that's all we've had, like, until FDR came along. Most people don't know about FDR, and but in reality it was just a tradition. Washington served one term, served a second term, and retired. And it's funny how we mythologize all this shit, because the way it's like, well, Washington, you know, he didn't want to be a dictator for life. Honestly, Washington didn't want to be president at all. He didn't. Like, Washington had no desire at all to be involved in politics. People spread this rumor that, you know, they wanted to make him king, and he turned it down, which is like 10% true. I mean, like, the only person who even threw out the possibility of making George Washington king of this new country was during the Revolutionary War. It was just some random colonel that no one's ever heard of. And he wrote a letter to George Washington saying, hey, George, if we win this whole thing, I say we make you king. And George Washington wrote a letter back, said, are you fucking insane? Are you trying to get me killed? He said, the whole purpose of this is to get rid of the monarchy. What is wrong with you? So, yeah. That was never a serious possibility in any sense. Washington thought it was insane. Everyone else would have too. But Washington, all he wanted was respect, because the people, like the aristocrats of our 13 colonies, were kind of looked down upon by the real aristocrats in jolly old England and old Europe. And also, it was harder to command respect too, because listen, if you are a duke, you know, in Glastonbury or some other goofy sounding British city or whatever, and you say, I'm in charge of this giant tract of land, I own everything here because my family has owned this for 700 years, that carries some weight. It's bullshit, but it does carry weight. But the colonies were around, 80 years? You know, and George Washington's like, yeah, this is all mine. It's kind of hard to garner that kind of respect. So he just wanted respect. He didn't really want to be president, but he was the only person who could have possibly, you know, he was the only one everyone respected. So they made him president. So he served twice and got the hell out of there because he didn't want to anymore. And everyone kind of followed that tradition from then on. A couple people challenged it. Like, they went in the article, like Roosevelt tried to run for a third term after, you know, retiring for a bit. And a couple other people did, but it was pretty rare. But I don't know if I like the limitation on the presidency. Because, say what?
I was just kind of saying, yeah, just
yeah. I don't know if I like it, because people focus a lot on term limits. And a lot of people want to put term limits on the House and the Senate, because their idea is that, you know, we have these bad politicians and we could just, if only we could term them out. It's like, well, they're not bad because they're just born that way. They're bad because of the system that allows them to get elected. And once they get in there, you know, they owe favors to the people who funded their campaign. And if they're termed out, they're just going to be replaced with someone else who owes favors for their campaign. So, yeah, I'm not like a huge fan of term limits in and of themselves. But what I find funny about this is that, let's say, by some miracle, they overturn this amendment so Trump can run again. He'd just get crushed by Barack Obama. Like, that's what would happen.
Yeah,
he would be destroyed like Barack Obama. So
he would actually, you know what? I'm all for it. I just want to see that, because that's exactly what would happen. He would run again, because of course he would. He'd be 90 years old, and it would just Barack Obama would just, it would be worse than Reagan Carter. You might get not Alabama, but everyone but Alabama, like voting for. I think Florida would vote for Obama over Trump. I honestly believe that.
It would be a hilarious irony that if Republicans got their wish and then ushered in 2 decades of Barack Obama as president of the United States, because that's exactly what would happen. Exactly what they want in the first place. But I don't know. Well, what do you think about term limits overall, just in general, as in the concept? I'm not a big fan of them. Like, the presidency is a little different, I understand, because of how much power is in that one person. It's not like, one district. Like, you're essentially a minor king if you're the president of the United States. I mean, so I kind of get why they'd want it there, but I don't know if I, in principle, agree with it.
I think like as I said, in principle, I kind of like philosophically disagree with it. Let the people choose what they want, but I think that practically speaking, of the limitations on our freedoms and our democracy, it's like the least harmful one, and probably also a significantly helpful one. So like I don't mind. If you told me they're getting rid of it, I'd be like, yeah, fine. Not gonna lose sleep over it. If you tell me they're gonna keep it, I'm like, okay, cool. It's probably never gonna happen, because even if like,
yeah,
the circumstances that would lead to it even coming into play are really limited, because as you said, like, people don't necessarily want to be president for another 4 years. Like if I ever ran for president,
that's true. That's a good point.
I'd be like, fuck, I gotta do this one more time and then never again for the rest of my. Obama, like, they would get him to do it, but he doesn't want to. He's having the time of his life. His legacy is secure. Honestly, if I was Obama, I wouldn't do it. My legacy is secure. Everything will be blamed on Trump that I ever did wrong, and everything that was good, I recovered us from the Great Recession. Like, we're good. They're going to forget about all my drone strikes. They're just going to blame everything on Trump after that. Like, the history books will look cleanly on him. What does he have to gain from going back to the presidency?
That's true. That's true. Like, the best part about, being president of the United States would be being a former president of the United States. Because
best job in America, former president of the United States. Your war crimes get watched over. No one's focusing on you anymore. Like, it's.
Yeah. And unless, even so, you can even really fuck it up while you're in office, like George W. Bush, and still be a relatively popular person, and everything. And people don't even, whenever you make any statement or appearance, the news vans are surrounding you and everything. When you die, the entire country is going to pay attention. It's like, God, man, like, it sounds like a pretty good gig, I got to say. I'm interested to know what our audience thinks, because this is like kind of like a non-polarized issue. Like, it's very, very non-partisan issue. I wonder like what the left in general. So if anyone's watching right now, there's 4 you guys.
Let us know in the chat what you think, because I am interested to hear what people say, because I agree with you. I agree with you on the congressional thing. It wouldn't change anything. I think that's like it's kind of like the minimum wage, where I'm like, this is like taking a sledgehammer to an issue that doesn't require a sledgehammer. Like, there are better ways to solve this problem, and this is just a really big, just duct tape over the whole thing that could go wrong. So it's like, I guess I generally support it, but it would be much more effective to just like make all campaign finance public, like just have it be publicly funded by the government, and this kind of solves all of your problems. But here we are.
Yeah. Those of you watching, I see you. There's 4 of you out there. Comment. Are you pro or
we are against? Pressuring you to comment right now.
Yeah, let's do it. This is the first time we want to know. We're doing some democracy here.
Algorithm.
But yeah, there's I was gonna say I can't remember. Oh yeah, like, it is one of those issues that's kind of all right. No one's gonna be marching in the street over this issue. Like, it's just not gonna be happening. So I understand that. Although I do want to talk about something you mentioned, that if you are a good president, that if you really are like that excellent, you should be able to pick a good successor. I found throughout history that's where most great leaders really fuck it up. Like, they really drop the ball when it comes to picking a competent successor. This is something I always say about Julius Caesar. You guys didn't think we'd bring up Julius Caesar. This is a straight issue. But Julius Caesar just knocked it out of the park, where a lot of great leaders fuck up in picking a competent successor. And it's so wild in Caesar's case, because Caesar's successor was 19 years old. Like, he picked his 19-year-old nephew Octavian. And it's insane to think about that Julius Caesar was like in his 50s or something, and he spent a summer with his 14-year-old nephew who was about to go to college, because college started earlier back then apparently, and he walked away from that meeting and he's like, this kid is a fucking genius. Like when I'm gone, hopefully it won't be 5 years from now, but whenever I'm gone, I'm leaving all this to him because he seems pretty competent, and he did. And so Octavian was granted all of Caesar, his name, his power, his authority, his money, and his money was actually kept away from him. Mark Antony tried to keep the money, but what Caesar wanted to do was, when he died, to take a giant chunk of his will and just give it away to the poor people in Rome. And Mark Antony thought that was insane. He's like, why would you just give away money? And he's like, that's crazy. What are you giving money away to these to these poor people? And Octavian really fought for it. And it was tied up in court. And so Octavian just borrowed a shitload of money from the bank and gave it away to the poor people, who kind of appreciated that. And, he won their support and loyalty, and became a competent politician and administrator and general. I mean, he was a general, but he wasn't out there doing that shit. He was a pampered, aristocrat and that shit, and ended up becoming emperor of Rome for like 60 years or something. Like, it's insane how well Julius Caesar did that. But that's the exception, not the rule. I find like most times in history that, being a great leader doesn't mean that you can spot a great leader whenever you look at one.
That is a fair point, and I guess what I'm saying, well, I think that's an unfair comparison to look at historical, because historically the next leader 90% of the time was just your son.
Your relative, yeah.
and so, like, you were out being king. He was growing up a rich fucking like prince. He's probably going to be a bad leader. Like that's probably, he's not going to be a man of the people. Like, it's, and so, like, yeah, that probably didn't. It probably wasn't the most successful strategy. But like, if you're selecting from everyone, and you are, and I'm assuming again, you're a good leader by like our definition of the word here. And like, you are actively helping the people of the country, that is going to be a higher priority for the president of the United States than it was for the an emperor in ancient times. So I think it's a little bit of unfair comparison, but I get what you're saying. Just because you're a good leader doesn't mean you're going to be good at selecting the next one. But it's also kind of a crapshoot.
It still is.
I guess you're right. I don't. Maybe you've convinced me. Maybe I'm keeping the amendment. I mean, I don't know. Who gives a shit? It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Like a plausible thing in reality. It's like, what if we all grew wings tomorrow morning? What would we do? Yeah, no, shit like that. It is funny though that throughout most of human history, that the job of king, when the king died, went to the king's shithead, spoiled brat kid. That's insane. Like, that is, because I don't know if I talked on the show once about the aristocracy, and like the aristocracy of like medieval Europe. So aristocracy, I think, is like, it directly translates to rule by the excellent, I think is what it translates to. And so these guys, like the first guy who became the lord or whatever, actually had to go out and pick up a sword and ride a horse and go into combat and inspire his friends to help him out. He actually had to put in a lot of work. Now, once he was dead, his son or brother or nephew, there's no guarantee that guy is inspiring or competent at all. And they just kept the shit up. They kept it going. It's like, yeah, this guy who never worked a day in his life and doesn't have any idea what it's like to struggle for anything, he's a good person to be in charge of all of us. It's kind of wild.
TJ, I used to, like, growing up, like, and honestly, until like I entered like adult life, I used to think that was crazy. I was like, how could people be so dumb to actually believe that because they fundamentally believe it. Like, the aristocracy, they are born better. They are better equipped to handle these things. This family has handled this for generations. Why would we have this peasant farmer lead us when we have this prince who's been raised from whatever, And I always thought that was dumb. And then I entered adult life and realized we're not all that much fucking different. It's just a little less direct 1-to-1. But like, come the fuck on. Like, if you look at like all of our institutions, there's so many family lineages. You look at our chance for success just for an average American, like
You're right.
significantly done. 50% of a parent's wealth advantages are passed on to their children. Like it is so hereditary in wealth and power in this country. And it is there are things that are sort of kind of true about it. Like I, having been raised in upper middle class household, who I was taught how to speak in business settings from a very young age. My dad would bring me to client meetings, and I would learn from that, and I internalized it, and I was good at that right out the gates in college because I experienced that. So there is something.
There is something to that, yeah.
The son of a fisherman is probably going to be a better candidate to be a good fisherman than I was, and there is a certain level to that. But when it comes to like leadership and when it comes to like the government positions, I think it's the dumbest thing in the world. And yet
the thing is,
we still naturally have it happen all the time.
Yeah, and like in that example, like you could go out and learn to become a fisherman if you so chose, but the peasant could not go to school and become an aristocrat. They were barred from it forever. It was completely outside of their purview. And also, so another thing, I do kind of see how, and because you see it all the time today, because there's a strong anti-democratic strain growing in the United States. I don't know if it's growing or it's just always been there. I don't know if it's
always been. I learn more and more every day just how much everyone actually doesn't care about democracy.
Yeah,
insane.
They really don't. And so when you go back to like medieval times or whatever, Edmund Burke is the founder of modern day conservatism. So like everyone, you can trace Rush Limbaugh, William F. Buckley, you can trace all that stuff back eventually to Edmund Burke. And Edmund Burke would write these treaties against the French Revolution and how awful it is that people are overthrowing the aristocracy because the aristocracy is, ordained by God, and that these are the people, like this bloodline is supposed to be in charge. And their arguments would be, well, listen, of course we need the people who are the excellent to be in charge. Have you talked to the peasants? And it's kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you keep, it's kind of like what Thomas Jefferson said about black people. Like Thomas Jefferson, if you read Thomas Jefferson's writings, funny is the wrong word, but it's but I want to see what you rate. But that's the first one that comes to my mind. Is Thomas Jefferson wrote stuff like, in my heart, I want to believe that black people are just as capable and just as intelligent as white people. Like I feel that in my heart, but man, when I go out and talk to them, they're idiots. It's like, wow. I wonder why that is, Tommy. Why that's the case? And it's the same thing that was going on, like hundreds of years ago, 500 or 600 years ago, where you'd have like princes or nobles or dukes or priests, and they say, look, allowing these people to vote? Are you kidding me? Have you talked to these like slack-jawed, knuckle-dragging peasants? They don't know anything. It's like, yeah, because you don't let them go to school, and it kind of reinforces these stereotypes. And American education is, God, it's suppressing sometimes too, because like it's like the conversation, like the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter, and like some of the stuff that people believe, it's breathtaking, but there's no argument that anyone can make that convinces me that is worse than just letting one small group of people make the decisions for everyone. Like you can't tell me that's not going to be a more exploitive system than the one that happens under democracy.
Yeah, and that self-fulfilling prophecy, you see it constantly everywhere all the time once you start looking for it. Like basically anyone arguing for austerity is making a version of that same argument, which has been made over and over and over again throughout the course of human history and has always been wrong. Like that's the thing. Like it's an easy pattern to see once you recognize it. It's just like, oh yeah, no, we can't trust the masses to do these poor lazy idiots. It's like they're poor lazy idiots because you made them that way. Like if you just gave them, and not all of them, a lot of there'd be people taking advantage. There would still be poor lazy idiots. But you know what? They kind of like I was saying with the amendment, the term limits. It's like, yeah, there's always going to be a case where there is some sort of dictatorial authoritarian leader than an enlightened despot who's going to be able to do a better job than the masses will. You know, it's always going to be the case. There's one of them out there at any given point in time, but the chances of them getting the dictatorship is very low compared to the asshole who's going to fucking kill and murder and do all the bad things to get there, and not be a good leader, because giving just power to the person who's most capable of acquiring it doesn't mean that they're the best at wielding it. And so it's very similar to that, where it's like, yeah, if you just give it to the masses, you might not be maximizing your chance for success in the short term, but in the long term, you're minimizing your chance for complete failure. And the more that you just allow the masses to kind of decide what they want, yeah, they're going to be wrong sometimes, but you know what? They're going to have a better idea of what works for them than a random person does, the majority of the time. And the good thing about giving the power to the masses is that they can't hold it because they are fickle. Like they can't just hold power for 80 years. Like they're going to change. 20% of them are going to die in 10 years, and there's going to be 20% more new people. You know, so it's just, I don't know if that's the actual proportions, but yeah, no,
right.
That seemed a little aggressive. You know, whatever the actual proportions are. Like,
John has big plans for the boomers coming up. No, it's true, and it's. I hate when they use. I know you've heard this, John. I know you've heard this when people try to shit talk democracy. When they say something like democracy is, you know, 3 wolves and 2 sheep voting on what to have for dinner and shit like that. Have you heard people say something like that? Where it's like, which is dumb for a million reasons, and I don't know how they can't understand that. A tyranny is the best example of tyranny is a tyrant, one person who's controlling everything, and then with democracy you have, you know, the group controlling everything. Which side are you closer to when you're saying the minority should get to make the rules? You're on the tyranny side. I mean, then there's no getting around that. But they just think that the right people should be the one doing this, and that goes down a bunch of other rabbit holes too. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that like the same people. It's always funny because the same people who say that the sheep and wolf quote are also the same people who want like libertarianism. Like it tends to be a lot of times the same thing, and it's like, who do you think? Like, I would much rather have 3 wolves and 2 sheep voting for who and all you have to do is put in institutional safety guardrails to say, okay, we can't have sheep for dinner. We know that if we allow that to happen, they might vote for the sheep. So you just don't vote for the sheep. And then the same people who make that argument go, oh, well, we don't want government restrictions on what we can do.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, bro, like you can only have one or the other, because if you just if it isn't democracy where you have guardrails, it'll just be the sheep eating the fucking wolves.
Exactly.
That's just what's gonna happen, or other way around. You know,
and that's so true, because they want like this faux democracy when it comes to economics. Mm-hmm. Then they're all in favor of it. It's like, because instead of like, so in democracy, you know, you vote with your vote. But in capitalism, you vote with your dollar, and if you have more dollars, you have more votes, and they're perfectly fine with that. Like that doesn't seem to be a flaw in their system whatsoever. But it's also weird too that they seem to be more okay with democracy at like local levels, and they or even state sometimes, as if there's a difference, as if, you know. Well, we're voting on a national leader like the president, so it should be democratic. But no, we can't make it democratic. But so we need electoral college. We don't need an electoral college for the state, which would be a perfect analog. But no, that's fine. That popular vote is fine in every election other than the presidential one, which doesn't make sense. And what I like to point out, because they always like to say, this isn't a democracy; it's a constitutional republic. It's like, all right, here you go. If we voted for the president with just a Democratic vote, we would still be a constitutional republic. Like republic means you have a representative. Like, we're voting for representative. Like, these are not mutually exclusive ideas. They're just idiots. They're just dumbass idiots. I don't get it.
to specifically speak to first your broader point of the big that point they make about like, oh, works on a local level but not a national one would maybe make sense if there was some rhyme or reason to what the states are, but there isn't. They're arbitrary lines. Oftentimes, like there's no cultural similarity. The people in Philadelphia are far more similar to the people in South Jersey than to the people in the middle of Pennsylvania. But like that, like culturally, like ideologically, like that would maybe make sense. I could see like drawing that line there and being like local, we're similar-minded people, but. No, it doesn't make it. The people who live in New York City way more similar to me than the people who live in Harrisburg. That's just not even close. But anyway, to the Electoral College is one of the dumbest things we do, because like the big thing that everyone says, oh, well, it would destroy the small states. Like, no, it actually, that's the Senate. You're thinking about the Senate. They always make the argument for the Senate for the Electoral College, but that doesn't make any sense because it's not the small states, it's the homogenous states. Where like Alabama is it's the monogamous. It's the states that are fucking other people. No, it's like Alabama gets screwed by the Electoral College too, because it's going to go red. Like, it doesn't matter. It's going to go red. They don't have to campaign there. It doesn't matter that it's a small state. They're not going to campaign there. They're going to campaign in Wisconsin. They're going to campaign in Georgia. Even Georgia has become like those. That's what it gives disproportional power to states that are contested, and that doesn't necessarily make any fucking sense.
It doesn't,
like, for the arguments that they make. But so many times with the Electoral College, we know why it was put in place. We know factually, we have the historical records. It was put in place to stop the idiot masses from voting. They wrote about this. We know the reasoning for its institution. It was being created, and somehow that explanation has morphed over time to do the same thing for a different reason without ever changing what the thing was. Like, and it's the same thing as like Israel. Like, it's like if you go back to the founding documents of Zionism, it's very explicitly a settler colonial project. It is.
They say those exact words out loud.
They say those exact words out loud. And at some point, Zionists seem to have changed that, but they don't ever specify when that changed or how. Like even though it's the same exact thing, somehow now it's no longer a settler colonial project, but back then it was. Somehow the Electoral College was a racist fucking system meant to disadvantage the poor and the masses when it was instituted. But even though it hasn't changed, it's now a thing to protect the masses.
Yeah.
No sense.
None whatsoever. It is frustrating that they do use these arguments, because they say this all the time, because they always say, well, it wouldn't be fair to have like states with like all those big cities running everything. It's like, look, it's just like John said, that 50 states don't matter in the Electoral College. Like 6 to 8 states maybe matter in a cycling rotation of 6 to 8 states. Like now it's probably like 5, that really matter in this upcoming election. If you live in California, if you live in Utah, you are not, the presidents don't give a fuck about your vote. They don't. They know what states are going to go where. And so like you're crippling democracy even more. And they act, and the funny is they act like they're benefiting from it. Like, well, the Republicans are benefiting from it, but by that rationale, they're not benefiting on a personal level. And it's just, I don't know. There's just this fetish for, well, the founding fathers said we have to do this. And you're so right, John, with how this was all set in place to keep the ignorant masses from gaining too much power, which once again, the founders were not shy about this. Alexander Hamilton called the people a great beast. He's like, you cannot trust their passions and their wills. It wasn't until like 1913 that we could directly elect our own senators. It used to be you could elect your congressman, but the senators were elected by the state legislature. Like there were a lot of checks in place against direct democracy. And the presidency, like the Electoral College, is one of the last vestiges of that. But this idea that the founders set up the Constitution so like the common man could have a say, it's remarkable propaganda. It's remarkable because a lot of people really do believe it.
And it's so easily verifiably false. Like that's the thing that just pisses me off. It's just so verifiably false. But go ahead.
No, it's verifiably false, but it's not as good of a story. That's the problem. Because so I'll give you an example. You ever seen The Patriot, the Mel Gibson movie, The Patriot?
Movie. Fantastic.
I
movie.
love it. I love that movie.
It's so historically inaccurate, but it is such a good movie.
Dog shit. Like
it's like let's make Braveheart, but not quite as good, but also America. Fuck yeah. Good. Like yes. That's basically what the movie is.
Oh man. You got this Southern plantation owner is like, oh well, actually, I pay these slaves and they work here by their own volition. And I was like, oh, get the fuck out of here. Some shit like that. It's like
I can't believe I'm just making this is just a total movie comparison. It's nothing to do with politics, but the Patriot is to Braveheart what Scarface is to The Godfather. And I think that might be one of the most accurate statements I've ever made on this show. It's slightly dumbed down, much more emphatically emotional. It's much more for the masses. But kind of doing the same things, the same broad strokes, the same themes, same kind of general aesthetic, but a little more dumbed down, and that doesn't make it worse. I want to be very clear. It does not make it worse. I enjoy all four of those movies kind of evenly, but there is a distinct difference, and they do the same thing.
That's true. See, I was thinking you were talking about historicity. I was like, wait a minute, but you're right.
I'm making this is a cinematic argument. It has nothing to do with
gotcha.
Yeah,
that's a really good comparison. I really do like that because, Godfather is great for 1,000 reasons, but it's a serious movie.
Yeah,
and Scarface is a video game, basically. It's and that's a good point. And The Patriot, it has its serious moments, like his son dying. Well, his son's dying. It was always movie and everything. But it's more of a popcorny feel than Braveheart. You walk away heavier from Braveheart than you do from the Patriot. You're like, America, fuck yeah, you feel that way and everything. This is also unrelated. We're doing movies. We're changing our whole platform, folks. We're
no longer a political channel. It's a film talk channel. It was an inability. We talk about The Boys too much.
I know, right? It might be working now. There's 6 people, so hey, what's going on?
There we go. Let us know what movies, shows you want us to talk about.
Come on, that's an easy question, folks. Everyone has a favorite movie.
Way more marketable. We can actually make money off of that shit.
You're right. Yeah, why are we doing controversial shit with politics and everything? But I remember watching The Passion of Christ at so 2 times I've had this feeling. I watched The Passion of Christ at a theater, and I watched $1 Million Baby in a theater.
Okay.
And those are the 2 examples I can think of is when a movie ended and no one said a word. Everyone kind of just walked out all somber.
Oh, yeah.
And I had the thought, okay, that was a good film. I'm never going to watch it again. I had that thought for watching both of those.
That's exactly it. And put Midsommar was another one just like that, where I was like, that was good, emotionally impactful. Everyone was dead silent, and I'm never going to watch it again.
So I didn't watch Midsommar in theaters. I watched it at home. Because I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as Hereditary. I don't know if you saw Hereditary.
I have the exact same thought. Hereditary is one of my favorite movies of all time, and Hereditary is a good movie, but it doesn't.
It does not quite that level. Hereditary hits just so hard, man. It's just so hard. Honestly, I think that Hereditary did something that very few films have the balls to do, which is to kill a child main character, which is very ballsy to do, even in a horror film
and fashion.
In the manner in which she died is like, oh god, that was one of the best scenes I've ever witnessed is when her brother drives home and he's in such shock that he just parks the car, leaves the body in the car, and he just had this shot of the house, and it goes time lapse overnight. The mom walks. Oh no, I think it goes to him in the room, and then you hear the mom screaming like there's the most gut wrenching scream
on his face, and he's just like, oh my god. And then the thing is, TJ, again, this has become a movie.
I know, right?
Thank you for our watchers. If you were expecting politics today, we started talking about Hereditary. TJ, I could make a whole video essay about Hereditary. But the beautiful thing about that is that it never lets the tension go. They do not talk about it. They never. The mom and the son never until that scene at the kitchen table.
At the kitchen table,
half an hour later. and it's like that whole it's in your gut, and you're just waiting for it. I'm like, it's such a beautiful movie. I mean, beautiful in a very horrific way, but like,
yeah,
oh my God.
Someone pointed out to me, I didn't, because I've watched it several times, and someone pointed out to me something I didn't see. It's a part where I think it's either the son or the dad is sleeping in bed, and the mom is like attached to the wall like Spider-Man in the dark, but you don't notice it.
You didn't see it? Oh, I noticed. Yeah.
I didn't. The first time watching, I didn't notice it, and I said, "Oh my God, she's like attached." That was terrifying. That was some horrifying shit.
The dream sequence where she like lights herself on fire, and like and like I remember like the morning after. This is how impactful that movie. The morning after watching that movie, I'm in the shower, and like I'm just like water in my hair, and I just could not get the image of her drenched in gasoline out. I had to open the shower curtain because I was feeling claustrophobic, and I was like, I can't have this. I need to be able to view all the corners of this room right now. I can't do it. The morning after, bright daylight. That's how much that movie like got to me. Yeah, great movie. And politics, TJ. What are we?
Yeah, folks. If you haven't seen Hereditary, you should watch it. It's an excellent film. If you like horror, that is, and it's a female-led horror film, and it's not your typical female-led horror.
She should have been nominated for an Oscar. So that was one of the best performances I've ever seen from what's it? Tony something.
I can't remember her name.
Tony is.
Hi, Wolfie.
No, I don't know. Anyway, what were we talking about before we got in? We were talking about the Patriot, Mel Gibson, a historical reality, democracy, the Electoral College. Let's go back to that.
Yeah. So we're talking about voting, and one thing I wanted to get to, because man, once again, time flies in these Wednesday ones. Here we go. Really but I wanted to show this. Actually, I don't know if this will work. If screen sharing will play like sound, but we'll find out. Yeah, we'll find out together here. But I ran across this interview of a guy named Pastor Joel Webbon. And the title of the video is Pastor Joel Webbon makes a compelling case for Christian nationalism. And spoiler alert, not terribly compelling. It's as dumb as you think it is. But there's a section in here where he talks about, the interviewer asked him, in your Christian nationalist worldview, should women have the right to vote? And so let me see if I can get this going here.
I'm excited to watch this, TJ. I haven't seen this for our audience. And TJ was telling me about it. I'm like, I got to watch this. Can't wait to hear this. It's one of those things where you just, whatever answer to that question that isn't just strictly yes, women should have the right to vote. Like, it's just like, what is the crock of shit coming?
Well,
I'm seeing a black line, TJ.
Oh no.
I'm hearing it through your speakers, I think.
I hear it, but it's not showing. Maybe it has like a block on YouTube or something.
That could be a thing. I don't know. We should look.
Let me see. I'll find out. Your screen. And, okay. So that tab will show. Okay, here we go. All right, cool.
I am not getting the sound.
You're not getting the sound? Okay, well, never mind.
I'm hearing like a muffle, like I'm hearing it as if it's like in another room underwater.
Oh, weird. Okay, all right. Well,
what are you
never mind,
TJ?
So, all right.
We'll figure this out ahead of time next time, folks.
Yeah, I know. It's we're in the beta testing phase of this. Trying to figure this shit out. But basically, he says that he doesn't believe women should have the right to vote, and that he says, well, why not? He says, because if we lived in a Christian nationalist society and women had the right to vote, in 50 years, we would no longer have a Christian society. And he said, because God ordained men to be head of the households, and that women are supposed to, raising the family and everything like that. And that if we've seen that women vote with their emotions, and we can see this, that he brings up the stat that if women weren't allowed to vote, we would have not had a Democratic president in the last 50 years. And he also argues that he makes this incredibly specious argument talking about how, well, I'm represented by my representatives in my county in Texas. And so the woman is just represented by the man. It's the same thing, really. We're all represented by someone else. No one gets a direct say in everything that we do. And this guy, I mean, it's just masked off, going on and on and on about how the fact that he says that the women's suffrage movement was a liberal attack on the nuclear family, and that, you know, they've just been trying to separate families this entire time. And he makes a really funny comparison, saying that we've broken down society to the atomic level of the individual when it should be the molecular level of the family. And which is hilarious to me, because the people who wrote the Bible had no clue what atoms or molecules were. So I don't know, like that was just a strange example to kind of use there. But basically, it's all things that, you know, one thing he says is really good. He says that so since we all have representatives, you know, we have, you know, councilmen and mayors and congressmen and stuff, since everyone is represented, why not allow women and children, because they're the same, why not allow women and children to be represented by a man who loves them and cares for them and would die for them, is what he actually says. It's like, okay, but what the fuck, man? It's just...
I also was this question. I'm not expecting logical consistency from this guy, but I am interested to know what his answer was. Was it asked or addressed? What about single women?
No, as far as I didn't see. It's like an hour. It's a 40-minute interview, so I didn't see the entire thing. But because I posted this on TikTok. Power's taken, not given on TikTok, by the way. You guys want to check it out? But I posted it, and a lot of people asked that. And what most people guessed is what I would imagine is that, one, you wouldn't be allowed to be a single woman. Like he probably wants to go back to the times where, all right, you're 14, let's find you someone to marry and get you out of here. Yeah. And if you're a widower or something, then now you're the property or the responsibility of your father or closest male relative. That would be my guess of what he's going for here. But women, and he makes a big point. He's like, I'm not saying women shouldn't have a say in society, but then goes on to explain why women shouldn't. It's like their power is influence, not necessarily action. It's it was awful. I'll send you the clip. It's pretty incredible.
You know, it's easy to dunk on Christian nationalists and this guy, but I do feel like there is a strong through line between the logic that is being used there and a lot of like logic from like liberal centrists, because what he's essentially doing is using the end goal to justify getting rid of equality, right? He's going, okay, well, if we allow women, if we didn't let women vote, we wouldn't have Democrats as president. If we allowed women to vote, we wouldn't have a Christian nationalist state. And having a Christian nationalist state is obviously the best thing that we should do, so we can't allow women to vote. Now, I, as someone who puts equality of people as the first and foremost principle that we need to maintain over everything else, hear that and go, well, that seems like a great reason not to have a Christian nationalist state. Then,
right? Exactly.
And most people hear that and view the same thing. But I feel like so many times when I hear things from, you know, centrist, they don't actually have a non-circular justification for what they're saying. Like, for example, the what we're just talking about, the Electoral College. You know, it's just like, oh, well, we have to do it this way because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, but if you held equality of every single person as your highest principle, you would never set it up this way. It would never, ever, ever be set up if that was your guiding principle. And there's so many, like, the capitalism in general. Like, you just would never have a capitalist society if your most important, highest principle was equality of human beings. And of course, you'll get the argument of, oh, well, we don't want equality of outcome, we want equality of opportunity. It's like, yeah, but you can't have equality of opportunity under a capitalist system. It's physically impossible.
Yes.
So, like, if you want that, I'll agree with you. I don't want equality of outcomes either, because that wouldn't make any sense. You would actually have to somehow stop equality of opportunity from actually happening to have that. But like, it's the same justification, but like that's the extreme version. But there's so many arguments made across the political spectrum that put equality of human beings to the back seat while saying, but I believe in equality, and it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and also I would say that equality of opportunity is necessarily dependent on at least some equality of outcomes. Like, if we're going to have equality of opportunity, everyone should, you know, have a decent education to compete in the market. Well, to guarantee that, we need public schools. I mean, like, there's just there are some.
It depends where opportunity stops and outcome begins. Like, and for them, it's always like, oh, when you're an adult, that's when outcome happens. Like, fuck no, that's not how this works. Like,
it's too late by then. Like, it's too late.
Like, that's now. Like, you're you.
God, yeah, it's actually earlier a lot quicker than a lot of us are comfortable realizing. I mean, I've seen studies about how poverty, like how it affects fetuses in utero, and just like incompetence and IQ scores, and also in like growing up. So I get frustrated sometimes over my life, and I was like, when people, a lot of times, a lot of solutions people had poverty is like, we just need to teach them how to be good with money. Just teach them how to be good with money. It's fine. And it's easy for someone who grew up with not even being rich, but just like with some money, where you weren't starving, where you weren't afraid that you wouldn't have enough. Your parents weren't able to afford the rent or feed you, and that. Then those conversations happen, like, okay, well, we can't do this because we need this. If you grow up destitute and you get your hands on any money, you don't know. You don't have the confidence that you will get some. It fucks with you a whole lot. And also, like, the way that your parents raise you, whether they're, rich or poor or otherwise. Like, so in the ancient times, I used to teach. And I remember going to parent-teacher conferences.
I thought you were actually going to talk about the ancient times, and he was like,
they might as well be.
Wait, I taught Octavius. That
why do you think he was so good at his job? No, but by ancient time, I'm talking like this is like 2004, 5, somewhere around there. And I was doing student teaching, and I taught at a junior high school, and I was at a parent-teacher conference, and I'm 21 or so. I'm like 21 or 22 years old, and so I'm like 6 years older than these kids. It's very funny to think about, but I'd have parents come in, and I was like, okay, so your daughter Rachel here, she's got a D in the class, but I've worked with her before, and she's a bright girl. Like, she could pass this class, but her issue is she never comes to class. Like, she shows up once, maybe twice a week, and by the time the test comes, she's not prepared for it. So, if she just comes to class, she'll be fine. There's enough time to correct her grade. And this happened several times, several, not once, not twice, several times. I had these adults twice my age, and they would look me dead in the eye and they say, yeah, I tell her to go to class and she just doesn't do it. Like, what should I do? How can I make her go to class? And I heard this, and it's like, okay, look, first of all, why are you asking a 20-year-old how to raise your child? That's fucked up. I'd be embarrassed to ask that question. Second, I actually do have an answer for you. It's too fucking late. If your kid is 15 years old and they don't listen to anything you say, that's not going to change. It's not. Yeah. That the time to set that was 10 years ago when you set up, the relationship between you and your child. Is like, look, you're a human being, you should respect, but I'm the boss here. You are not running this show, because if you do let them run the show, that's what's going to happen. So if you are given a bad deck of cards with your parents, that fucks you up too. So yeah, like it's this idea that, oh yeah, everyone's equal. No, everyone does not have a perfectly equal shot at this. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, to just like draw it all back. That's not. Sometimes that's a parenting issue because you're just a shitty parent. But sometimes that's a societal issue. Like, your parent had to fucking work 2 jobs to put food on the you're a single mother and wasn't around to raise you. And like there's so many studies on like kids that like schools that have pretty wide income variance, and you look at the test scores, and you'll see that the poor kids and the rich kids, they perform about even or much closer to even towards the end of the school year. But the difference is that when rich kids enter the school year, they are so much farther ahead than the poor kids because their parents had time to sit there and educate them over the summer, sit down and read with them, do whatever, and they are way more prepared to enter that grade. So while the poor kids are playing catch up all year, the rich kids have the opportunity to grow more, and that is exactly what happens on a societal level all the freaking time. Before we wrap the show, do you know blocking? And his question that I have no idea what it's a reference to.
Oh my God, I didn't even see that.
He said, "Hi, what are your thoughts on the 16th Volfreak?" And I don't know what the 16th Volfreak is.
Yeah.
Now I have to look at what the 16th.
I
don't even know. I'm very worried about what this is going to be.
Or whatever. It's really like share that.
I knew you were wearing a Pokemon shirt, and that seemed like a thing. I have no clue. No, it's not even Google searching. I'm getting Tennessee Sweet 16. I don't know. But okay, well, I don't have any thoughts on the 16th.
Yeah, sorry.
But that should transition us nicely. TJ, what are we talking about tomorrow?
Oh yeah, so tomorrow, what are we going to talk about? That's a good question. So I was thinking there was some issue with I forgot. I should have written it down, but it was something about a trans issue I'd run across. But I don't know. I hadn't really
let's talk about a trans issue for a while. So I think like top of the list, obvious one is the World Central Kitchen strike.
Oh my God! Yes, yes.
That's I have a lot of like things.
I have so
that's an obvious.
Did you see Biden's tweet about that? I saved it because that's right. That's
I saw the official statement. What was his tweet?
Oh yeah, the official statement. Yeah, I saw the official statement on a tweet or something.
Okay, yeah.
There's the classic passive voice that is like, I feel devastated for the people killed. It was like, okay, by whom? By
Whom? It's like yeah, well maybe whatever. I have plenty of thought. We'll get into that later. And Kiki, I know, is a lot of her content is now pro-Palestine. She kind of transitioned from like straight up being like a female, like a women's politics influencer to a straight up pro-Palestinian. It's
all Palestine all the time now.
We should definitely do that. We should probably also talk about the bombing of the Iran. Was it a consulate? It was something where they killed a general.
Yeah, it was a Syrian. Or is it I mix it up. It's like a Syrian leader was killed in an Iranian consulate, or an Iranian leader killed the Syrian consulate. I can't remember which one it is.
So we should talk about those two Israeli topics. If you can think of what I haven't talked about trans rights in a while because I feel like
I had one, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, I think it was a goofy one. I like the goofy ones. The close. It was a closeout one. It was a Charlie Kirk speech he did, and basically it was urging Republicans to go all in on the trans stuff more. I think it was an appeal to Trump or something like that. I think it was something like that. But which is very funny because that's what they did 2 years ago, and it completely fell apart. I just love Republicans giving Republicans bad advice. That's kind of funny to me. But we will have topics tomorrow, folks. we will have topics.
So we'll do those too. We'll do if we're just chatting about things. I wanted to do maybe because there's the Florida abortion Supreme Court ruling, and essentially like Democrats are kind of like low key pushing to like they're happy that like this is getting on the ballot because they want to turn Florida purple, and so like I kind of want to have a conversation about that and like, is Florida turnable? I don't know. Should we devote resources to turning Florida in an election against Trump? Probably not, but
I would.
Yeah. If we had Obama on the ballot, then yeah, but not
maybe
not
so.
Biden. And then I was literally excited to hear about the reference from Ancient Times.
I don't even remember what I said about that. What is Ancient Times?
That was you're teaching in Ancient Times. Yeah, she was like, I was excited to hear an actual reference. Yeah, watch The Patriot, you'll get it. And then there was the Hillary went on fucking.
Oh my God, that'd be a great one. That's a great one.
On Hillary for half an hour.
It's like the Hillary thing. Why?
They don't learn.
I don't understand it at all because look. I'm not saying that you have to lie to people. You don't have to go out there and say, yeah, third-party candidates have a chance. They don't. You don't have to say that. All you have to do is say, Well, that's unfortunate that so many people are not, excited about supporting our party. We should do something to try to change that. Like, it's gracious, it's exciting. It may not gain you any votes saying that, but you won't lose any, and you could definitely lose some.
Like the fucking geriatric goddamn gargoyle.
Incredible.
Like, oh God. We'll talk about it. So
we should save it. We'll save it for tomorrow.
We'll do the two Israels. We'll do Hillary Clinton. We'll do Florida. Those will be our 4 topics.
I like it.
And if you think of what the trans thing is, just send it over to me. Let me know.
Yeah, I can't believe I lost it. I didn't write it down. I was so excited about that women's suffrage guy that I forgot to do it in the video. Wouldn't even work. And we'll figure it out for later, folks.
We got Kiki May on I think that's her screen name.
Last I checked, because she has a second account now, so it might be different.
We have
Kiki May and Gigi Fallacy. So we have Kiki and Gigi, and can't wait to be joined by them. They'll be fantastic. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, folks.